I'll pick her up, I'll take her home, and I'll get her adopted. That was the idea, because mere paas hi ghar nahi tha yaar. So I said, there was no chance, and I was also 19, so I was like, there's no chance of me keeping her. I walk in, my wife is sitting on the TV, my dog is the only person that's excited to see me. Right? Are you ready for a 12, 13, 14-year commitment to a dog that might have, again, health issues can crop up, behavioral issues can crop up. I think that one of the biggest favors you can do your dog is treat it and understand it like a dog. The dog may not have had any history of anything negative that has happened to the dog. But there is a very important factor that people are forgetting is genetics.
Yes. Hello everyone, my name is Pranav Vashisht and this is the Gut Feel Show, a podcast on mental well-being where we invite guests from all walks of life to discuss different aspects of well-being in their profession and also in their life. Our today's guest is very special and she is a dog trainer. She has a complete facility in Mumbai. Our today's guest is Mitali Salvi. She has been working in this space for 13 years now. And we spoke about everything from getting a dog to all the issues that a dog can cause if they are not trained and if they have behavior issues in their genes. Also, the wide impact of dogs on our lives, which is due to their compassion and the joy they bring in. It is a lot of impact on your mental health. They are actually directly impacting your mental health without we knowing it. Please keep watching till the end to know everything about dogs and subscribe us for more such interesting content. Hello Mitali, welcome to the Gut Feel Show. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. This is actually a very interesting start to my morning. And thanks to you, I've actually come to Delhi. So it's a good reason to be here.
Glad to meet you. And I'll start the conversation with something that you have been doing day in and day out for 13 years now. You've been working with dogs with all kind of things like from puppies to behavior issues, a lot of things. Tell me about that. How has work been?
Work's actually been great, busy, very, very busy, especially because I think more and more people are now getting dogs.
Yes.
It's becoming way more common for people to have dogs as pets than a couple of years ago. So that also means that, there's this innate need now. I think there's a bigger rise because there's a rise in population of dogs. There's a rise in, of course, behavior problems with dogs. And I also feel like, going forward, there's like spaces are getting tighter. We don't have as much space as people used to have before.
More of flat living is coming in.
Exactly. So that also means that the dog is in your space so much more.
Yeah.
So there is more chances of conflict more than ever.
Agreed.
And that is also causing, again, typical behavioral issues, which, I'm happy to discuss and excited to discuss. But that's where training comes in.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of behavior modification comes in. So it's definitely been very, very busy.
Tell me about your journey. Like you also have a training facility. You have a team of trainers with you, which is one of a kind. We need that in India right now. Tell me more about that.
So I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
So when I was a young girl, so I was born in Bombay.
Okay.
And when I grew up at about, when I was 5, I actually lost my mother. So when I lost my mom at 5, my dad then was a single father. It was completely, out of the blue. And because he wanted, of course, he needed help raising me. He was still working. So we decided that, I'd move with my grandparents.
Okay.
So my grandparents lived in Ratnagiri. It's a small coastal town near Goa.
Okay.
So we said, Bombay abhi chhod ke, we'll move to Ratnagiri. That way my grandparents are there, Dada Dadi hai, so that way they'll also be able to kind of look after me while my dad continued to work. So we moved to Ratnagiri. There we had a, big house, garden tha bahar. And my dad was always a dog lover. But I think that our kind of my love for dogs and my interaction with dogs increased there a lot more. So we had dogs. We actually started with having a German Shepherd because my dad was a big German Shepherd fan. He was also in the Merchant Navy before.
Okay.
So we had this beautiful German Shepherd. And I actually realized because in Ratnagiri being such a small town, there was no TV, no internet, my childhood was completely outdoors. Like
great, that is ideal childhood actually.
आजकल के बच्चे को कुछ नहीं मालूम.
You were lucky to have that experience.
I'm very grateful for that. So we, I used to be out a lot, and I think that also because, of course, there's that gap between grandparents and you also, because it's, whole generation as well. And we, I was in school there, so I used to come back, and it was actually, funny because I spent so much time with my dogs that every day I came back from school, and I remember the first thing, I'm Maharashtrian, so my grandmom used to always be shouting, because before I entered the house, I used to run to my dog's kennel. I used to come back from school and run straight to my dog's kennel, just spend a little bit of time with him. His name was Ringo. And then I used to come in to eat. And every day my grandmother used to, Abhi haath dho le. Then ye ho raha hai, wo raha hai. Then I'd sit down for lunch. And then again, evenings, we'd go out to play, and he was always around. And I always said, when I was young, I always used to say, in Marathi, it's like, mi moti hoon kutrachi doctor honar. I was like, I always wanted to grow up and be a vet. And, but, wo zamane mein, it was very different. Like my grandmom also used to be like, she, like, ये कुत्ते का डॉक्टर नहीं बनना है.
कोई मानता नहीं था कि ये भी कोई प्रोफेशन है.
I agree. And and then I remember like every school vacation, I used to for some reason spend the vacation at my vet's, because of course then slowly we had many dogs. एक dog हो गया फिर, and I also feel like my dad, because of in general my childhood, he never said no for me having a dog. And I used to always be like, I want a new puppy.
And he could see that joy in you and with the companion and a lot of things.
I think so.
And maybe he knew that dogs have an impact. Something maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he was also like, she's, there's definitely a sense of like comfort and joy that she's getting from a dog. So, we're going to, and he never really said no. But the one thing that I'm grateful for is that he was very strict about certain things. Was like, it's your dog. You have to take care of him from start to finish.
Very good.
And even when I was like 6, 7, fairly young, and whenever I got a dog, he would be very clear कि उसका नहलाना, susu, potty, everything has to be done by you because it's your dog. And at that time, I probably wasn't the biggest fan of it because I used to go to school, and also grandmom hai, so she used to be like, "Arey bichari school se thak ke aayi hai. Let me clean up, potty kiya hai ghar mein, let me clean up." He was like, "No, she's going to come back from school and she's going to pick it up."
Good, very good.
And today I'm grateful because
शुरू में सबको बुरा लगता है और वो डिसिप्लिन किसी को अच्छा नहीं लगता शुरू में.
And then when you grow up, you're like, okay, thank God he was. And also today, I think we pick up like 20 potties a day. But no, it was a very, very interesting childhood. And then slowly and steadily, I got into. Of course, that was me being a kid. I was always, around dogs. It was fantastic. My current dog is my 13th dog.
Oh.
So we've had that many dogs throughout my childhood.
So you had that major trigger as a kid itself.
Always. I was always that, and I was always also that kid who would be in like some gutter. Like कोई आके बोला ना, रे मिताली वो उधर puppy अटक गया है. Like I would be there, उसको निकालते हुए, then घर पे आके उसको फिर skin infection हो गया, फिर उसको नहलाते, and my grandmom would be yelling in the background all the time. She'd be like, अरे तुझे कुछ हो जाएगा, and but it was a really fun childhood. And then after that, of course, I, then it was like, acha theek hai abhi ho gaya. Now there's a plan, you get into engineering, start.
Set plan, 3 Idiots plan.
Exactly. And then it's like, you got to do this. And then I started my engineering.
Okay.
I hated it. I was just like, this is not for me whatsoever. And then then we moved back to Bombay. And while I was doing my second year of engineering is when I actually rescued my current dog.
Okay.
So she was a little puppy, and I lived in a hostel that time. So I was going back to my hostel raat ko, and we ended up seeing this pup. It was very dark. It was pouring. And while I was going back to my hostel, I saw this, this dukandar, and he had a jhadu, and he was like smacking something, and I was like, so I got out and I got into an argument, and I was like, kya kar rahe ho, this, that. So I said, hey, madam, do din se na idhar hi padi hui hai, malum nahi kidhar se aayi hai, nikal nahi. And she was just trying to get shelter under because barish ho raha tha. And he said, लोगों के कपड़े पकड़ रही है, लोग दुकान में आ रहे तो. So I said, what, let me just, I'll pick her up, I'll take her home, and I'll get her adopted. That was the idea, because मेरे पास ही घर नहीं था यार. So I said, there was no chance, and I was also 19. So I was like, there's no chance of me keeping her. So I picked her up and then घर नहीं था तो I said क्या करे. So I was like, you know what idea. So I said I had a backpack, उसको backpack में डाला, zip बंद किया, went past hostel security, ऊपर लेके गई. Then somehow I convinced my roommates and I said, listen yeah guys, you know उसको बस 3-4 दिन रख, मतलब कुछ नहीं करेगी उसके लिए वो ऐसे कुछ भी ऐसा एक bucket ले लिया and I said इसमें रख दूंगी रात को, just deal with it for a couple of days. Couple of days became 15 days and then by the end of it I was like giving वो hostel warden ने she knew now ना like the security knew तो उनको ऐसे 100 रुपए की please वो उनको नहीं बताना किसी को नहीं बताना, I'll figure it out. And that time, this was also 13 years ago, like 13 years ago, the concept of adoption was not there that much. You know, people were still very much into their pedigrees and I thought it would be very easy कि मतलब 2 month की छोटी cute looking है. And I really tried quite a bit, but nothing was coming out of it. And then finally I said अच्छा कुछ छोड़ तो नहीं रहा है. So I said, you know what, I'm going to convince the नीचे का जो guard है hostel का, सामने ground था. तो I said, you know, आप उसको उधर ही रख लीजिए, like as a compound puppy.
ठीक है.
But she was also very nervous. So she used to be scared of people, you know, when people walked in, somebody tried to pet her, she used to like go hide. So then I was like, you know what, बचपन में तो इतना किया ही है dogs के साथ, so I'll just start working on her, you know, behavior work.
Okay.
And that just came out of me having experience with, you know, growing up around dogs. So little things I said, you know, उसका खाने का bag, I got this big bag of pedigree, वो watchman के पास रख दिया. And I told the watchman, I said, कोई भी आएगा ना अंदर उनको बोलना, अरे वो बेचारा कुत्ता ने खाया नहीं है, you know, आप थोड़ा ही खाना दे दो ना उसको, you know. So it started off with that, right? And I said, you know, it'll help, like 10 लोगों 15 लोगों से हाथ से खाएगी, so she'll probably open up.
Confidence आ जाएगा.
So we started off with that.
Okay.
And then of course she was downstairs, so she was being exposed to a lot more, you know, stimuli in general. And 6 months later, like this continued for 6 months, where every time I would come back from college, I would take her out. And then we'd chill, and then she'd be back down when I went to college. And then I think 6 months in, she got her first heat, right? And her first heat was the first time, of course, once in every 6 months, dogs come into heat. So बाकी के सब male कुत्ते were like out behind her, you know. And then it was quite traumatic also because, you know, for me to also see कि I can't keep her anywhere inside. And then that's when I was like, you know what, we've got to do something about this. And in the meanwhile, I actually, because I started training her for these little things, you know, like sit, bolo, shake hand, bolo, all of that stuff. And I used to take her to her vaccinations to this doctor. And every time I went to the vaccinations, I used to make her like sit, wait, you know, stay calm. Then he used to inject her without any problems. And her vet actually was the one, he said, Mitali, you're so good at this. You're a natural at this. Why don't you look at, you know, something to do with dogs and dog training world. So I said, bhai, vet, doctor to abhi now, it's not even a chance because I'm already...
So that was a blessing in disguise to get this message.
Absolutely. And I had no clue that this world existed. Like, you know, because growing up, dog trainer kaisa tha, wo aata tha aur dande ke sath, you know, like it was a standard sort of like an image. And he said, no, you know what, there is like something where you can do like a small course, you know, in behavior work, dog trainer work, and he's like, chalu to kar, you know, we'll kind of get there. So I said, theek hai, you know, let's see. Again, I was 19, second year of college. So I said, okay. So then I contacted this person that used to do, you know, basic. And that time the cost was 25,000 for some 15, 12 days. So I said, paisa bhi nahi hai. And family ko kaise bolu na? So I called my grandmother still. Na? So I said, Arey, Aji, you know, I want to do this course and all. And she was like, please, that is not happening. Chupchap se apna study karo, ye karo, and it's not happening.
Back then, dog trainer course was like something, kya bol rahe ho?
Absolutely. So I said, acha theek hai, abhi kya kare? And then that time I had just started dating my boyfriend, then husband now. So I said, you know what, like, chhod do yaar, it's okay, you know, I'm on a track, it's fine. I'm not going to do this course, it doesn't make sense. And then he was like, nahi yaar, look, you're always going to be around dogs. You love dogs. Even if you don't, you know, it'll be good general knowledge. So I was like, acha,
wo keeda jayega nahi.
So I was like, acha, kya kare? So then we started off with, I got a part-time job at a call center in the nights.
Okay.
I got another job as a Red Bull girl in the day, in the afternoon. And then, of course, Ali also helped me with little bit of whatever he was making, because he was working with his dad in the factory, and he said, Chal, whatever I can save up, I'll save up, okay? And wo 3 mahine, 4 mahine mein tha, of course, we'll make the money come together. So, theek hai. So we started like our whole process and managed to put it all together. Started my course, उसके किसी को मालूम नहीं था. In fact, my family did not know for probably a while, like 1 year or 2 years, that I was even training dogs. And then after that happened, did the course, and then somehow I managed to get my first client. It was very interesting also because now that I think of it, like I printed wo flyers, newspaper mein dalo, like I was just waiting for somebody कि कोई भाई कुत्ता दे दो मैं कर लूंगी train. And that's really how the journey started. I started off with going, and I remember I got my first client in Goregaon, so I used to do the college and then train and then rickshaw, go there, and then second client, and that's really how it began. I
And
started
then you
with
reached to a facility now eventually.
Yeah.
How is
Touchwood
that facility? Tell me about that.
So right now, of course, I have my training facility, which is called Mitali's Board and Train. So we have a boarding and a training center wherein we get dogs in with any sort of, we could have puppies. So we take on puppies anywhere after 4 months, after their vaccinations are done. And you could have, starting them younger is the best idea. So starting them young. So 4 months onwards, we do your basic obedience, your leash walking, etc. And then we go on to, of course, severe behavioral cases as well. So dogs that are biting, severe reactivity issues, and it can get really bad. So that's also the other side of it. And touchwood, I've managed to get a team together. And that's another interesting bit is none of my people in my team that are now dog trainers, again, have ever come from a dog training background. They just have, a love for dogs, and they've come like...
So these are passionate people who you are training to become a dog trainer.
Yes.
Very good.
And they've come from, we have a graphic designer who's, now decided to switch. We have somebody that was in marketing that decided to switch. Somebody that's an architect that, was like, I'm not, into architecture. I love dogs, and that's...
I think this is the avenue that a lot of people need, because when you have this love for dogs, then we get that ceiling that ab kya kare, because we don't know kahan, there's no avenue like jahan pe aap jaake seekh sakte ho. You can polish this skill up or enjoy this more further. So that is what you're doing, I believe, and that is something which is also in return helping families with dogs and a lot of dogs who might have otherwise suffered in life.
Absolutely. I think that, and that's actually something I really want to do. Of course, right now, I feel like I'm doing it on a smaller scale where somebody joins the team, I teach them, they see the whole process of it, and then I feel it takes me 2 years to create a good trainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's all a time and experience game. I keep telling
every dog is different plus.
And so, you can read as many books. लोगों को लगता है कि theory में आप देख लो कि tail ऊपर गया, ये ऐसे गया, वैसे गया. Once you put a dog in front of you, it's a whole different ball game because it's a practical game.
Correct. Now, Mitali, tell me something. When it's been a history of human-dog relationship, it's way too long. Like the most interactions humans have had is with dogs.
Yes.
In return, a lot of times dogs have a lot of good impact on humans. Like in families in general, like tell me about the impact of these, the joy and the comfort the dog provides and the compassion they have. What is the effect of this on the mental health of someone who is having a dog?
Oh, that is actually an interesting topic. So one is, I think that when you look at dogs, we go back about 15,000 years ago, right? We know that dogs started off as wolves. They came in, humans started traveling the world in groups and in settlements, and we used to have, livestock, the chickens, goats that used to travel with us. And of course, wolves started noticing that, okay, these humans are, have food, they have resources. They started lurking around the spaces around us. And initially, of course, it was an inconvenience for human beings because, they used to try and take our food away and, kill the sheep and kill the goats, etc. And then slowly we realized that, there are some of them that might be a little docile and they have great sense of smell. They can be good at guarding. So why not start using them to our benefit? And
so they started selecting, that means.
There was a very selective process. And in fact, humans also actually used to hunt them. because the ones that used to actually kill or were a threat were hunted. And then you realize that the ones that started, kind of giving in to you were the ones that then slowly became a part of
That
human
can be
life.
a part of your team at least. Like a lot of people then you started using dogs to hunt.
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, today we have, like, you have a wolf that's now created a Chihuahua and a Shih Tzu. And that has really happened through very selective breeding. And that's why a lot of times, when I work with dogs today, I keep telling people that you have to understand the genetics of your dog, because as human beings, we have created a German Shepherd that we needed for a specific purpose. So, be it herding, guarding, uske liye, we created this. We've created also, something like a Maltese or a Yorkshire Terrier, which were mainly used. These are called ratting breeds. The job of this breed is to kill rats.
Okay.
So the ideal job is, they used to be in barns around farmers, and unka kaam hi tha that they have to look for rats, get them out of their burrows, and kill them. And when you look at the two different sides of it, we have such varying breed specifications. So when we look at, dogs today, they become such a big part of our lives. And we know, of course, scientifically also, we know that petting a dog, cuddling with a dog releases, oxytocin, releases serotonin. It's, a mood elevator. At the same time, dogs are very, very good at thriving on a routine. So a lot of times, you're kind of also pushed to take, me being case in point, like I come home, a lot of times I'm exhausted because my job also is like super, super physically demanding. And then I come home and then I'm like, dude, I have to take my dog for a walk, and it like also pushes me to get that quality time with her and also get out and like mentally break away from the day, get in some like fresh air.
I believe they immediately get you in the moment. When we say that be in the moment, be present, like which meditation brings in, a dog immediately brings you out of everything that you're thinking maybe.
Absolutely. It does. I think that it breaks you out of, again, like, it's one of those things, and we often, I think the amount of clients that I've had that have said this is like, I walk in, my wife is sitting on the TV, my dog is the only person that's excited to see me.
And they have the same excitement every day, consistently. They're so consistent at it. They just break out every other pattern that you might be having in your head. Work ka stress, ye stress, wo stress. They'll just immediately bring you out and kuch aur kaam shuru ho jayega basically.
Absolutely. No, yeah, it's a whole different, and in fact, I keep telling people is like, growing up with dogs as a child was the best childhood ever.
That's a blessing.
Absolutely. And it just brings out a whole different side of you, because also you learn so much responsibility. Like today I have so many clients with children, and they've got a dog. And of course nowadays, school is very, very demanding and there's a lot happening on that front. But even little things like teaching them to take them down for, pee and poops, brushing them, making sure they have food on time. Even those little things teaches you so much responsibility at such a young age. And I, of course, we know that it makes such a big difference to individuals when they grow up as well. But there is a lot of positives to having a dog in your life, and it's a joy to having a dog every single day. That's actually something that I, my dog's 12, she's going on to 13, and something that I've, for 2024, I said, I'm going to wake up in the morning, and you know how we wake up and it's become a very bad habit wherein we wake up, we look at our phones, look at our emails, what's happening on the work front. But I was like, this year, every morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to spend 10 minutes just hugging her, kissing her, cuddling her. And it's genuinely been such a, of course I know it, but to like put down everything and for 10 minutes in the morning just to hang with her is just amazing.
It is just a sudden kind of an change of hormones they give you. Like a lot of positivity comes in, a lot of good feelings come in, so you get a good start to the day. Is what a lot of people who have dogs should do, because they can just immediately do it.
Yes,
they have some kind of superpower, I believe.
No, absolutely. I think they are they're just magical creatures. But at the same time, they're also very simple and simple animals in
simple. They don't think too much. They're very in the moment. They just they're not like us planning something.
True. And they don't keep grudges.
Yeah, they don't.
It's like जो है नहीं पसंद आया अभी
in the
बोल दिया
moment
हो
है.
गया.
अभी है सब अभी हो रहा है. Within 5 seconds, 10 seconds सब हो रहा है.
True.
So Mitali, this is the positive impact of dogs on humans. I want to discuss the other side of the story also. Every dog has a different requirement and we should provide the same attention. We cannot be selfish that we are just seeking our benefit and not taking care of them. Tell me the other side. A dog also has separation anxiety and stress at times. How do we take care of that? How can we look into that? And what is the awareness that is needed?
So one is, I do pre-dog consultations with a lot of people, wherein somebody that's very few, because I think a lot of people, they don't think too much before getting a dog, and it's important too because today we have such busy lives. We're going into work, but I think simple understanding of things to begin with is one: do you have time for a dog, right? Especially if you're getting a puppy. A puppy is going to take a lot of your time, in terms of, again, simple things like toilet training. Puppy needs naps, it needs to come out, needs to go for walks, socialization. Then, of course, comes the financial aspect of it, right? Are you ready for a 12, 13, 14-year commitment to a dog that might have, again, health issues can crop up, behavioral issues can crop up. So are you ready for that aspect of it? And of course, routine, that are you ready, like if you're traveling out of town, what is your ecosystem there? There's a lot to think about even before you get a dog. And then, of course, coming into the aspect of dogs' mental health.
Yeah.
And, because I think that we've also become, as human beings, we're all very selfish, right? So we only think about how this is going to benefit us.
Actually, that is the sad side of things, how things are growing with humanity. Is that हम मतलब निकालने के लिए ना, we get very selfish. कि we see our benefit, we don't want to equalize or give back.
Exactly.
I think what we are talking about is giving back to the dog.
True. And there is so much, like, something that I actually tell a lot of people is that your dog doesn't need fancy shoes and a Gucci and a Prada jacket. Your dog actually wants to go out in the mud and play and run and get messy.
Wants your attention.
Right?
That is it.
And that is actually more important because, and I'm not saying that I don't, right? I also dress up my dog, right? I also enjoy putting her in nice bow ties. But then I'm like, tera bhi, mera bhi. Right? So I will also take her on the treks on the weekend. Every probably Saturday, Sunday, we're at the beach running around. Right? And that is important because there has to be a give and take.
Yeah.
There has to be something wherein you're giving me this, but you're also getting this.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, every, I think, human relationship also has to have an equal give and take. And so is your relationship with your dog. And that is something that people need to understand. I think that one of the biggest favors you can do your dog is treat it and understand it like a dog. A lot of times people get caught up in the fact that, they start humanizing the dog too much.
Yeah.
Right? And that is where I think a lot of behavior issues, a lot of anxiety actually even crops in from. Is because you somehow stop looking at the dog as a different species. And that is something I recommend to my clients all the time, is that have you actually taken out the time to understand your dog as a dog?
Yeah.
It's probably doesn't happen because
a lot of time I've heard people believing that the dog is thinking like them.
Exactly.
Like it is like this anxiety might be because of jealousy of something or some grudge something. Though it does not happen like that.
It's so true because people come in and they, simple, just to give you like a simple fact, right? People would say, oh, Mitali, I had, so again, getting into a little bit of like theory here, dogs have a 1.3 second associative memory. Okay, so that is the window as to which they remember that an action that they performed to the effect or the reaction that the action had. Right? But so many people will come in and they'll be like, Mitali, he now pees in the corner, and then when I come back, I shout at him, and he knows exactly, that he's done the pee, because that's how we function, right? So say, you've done something that I didn't like, and I reminded you the next day saying, hey, yesterday this way you behaved, was not appreciated, I didn't like it. You will remember that, right? For a dog, that's not the case. Now, it's interesting because a lot of times, again, people say, when, say, for example, I'm shouting at my dog, and my dog goes, its head is down, looking away. That's actually the dog trying to avoid conflict. But in the human world, when I do that, I'm guilt. It's guilt,
That
right?
is where we take it wrong.
So a lot of people kind of assume it's actually a term called anthropomorphism, where we take a feeling or an emotion or a behavior in the human world, and whatever is similar looking in the dog world or the animal world, we feel that it's the exact same emotion.
Because we don't know anything different. The thing is, we're not so well read on the emotional side of it, because the education system has always taught us an IQ based thing, gives job create karo. Emotional awareness in humans is very, very less. I've been just bringing in a point here because I've been working in the mental health space. It is no difference that humans do to humans. Kids, parents telling their kids for anxiety and all that it is some other issue.
Yeah.
It is some other problem. So with dogs, it is a difference of thinking process completely.
True.
It is a huge, huge difference.
True.
At least like you need to understand what from the dog's perspective, at least like what you're mentioning is that come out of your shoes actually.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the most important thing. I said, people, I keep saying that the biggest favor you can do your dog is to understand your dog as a dog.
Yes.
And meet it halfway, because that is so important. And also to add to that is that, when you're looking at your dog as a dog, it's really important that you have to understand how the dog thinks, right? You have to understand कि भाई इसके language में क्या बोल रहा है,
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल.
right? It's not going to be the same.
And what are these signs that you just mentioned? नीचे देखने वाला. We're taking it as something else.
Exactly. So that is the dog. Like, say for example, today I walk into my house, and I start shouting at my dog in a stern tone. My dog's going to look away, because the idea is the dog is trying to avoid conflict, where the dog is saying ki, bhai, I don't mean any harm. I don't know why you're angry, but I don't mean any harm right now. And I'm totally trying to diffuse the situation. It's not because my dog remembered yesterday kya hua.
Bilkul, bilkul. And that is where also I think a lot of people cross the line and start beating the dog, and that is where maybe the dog will bite or something or the other, because they will save themselves.
Possibly. That could be one of the reasons. Of course, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. And I think that's one of the things that is also oversimplified, wherein, people think that, a dog will only bite if it's threatened, or a dog will only bite if, like, you look at, a lot of an unpopular opinion, but a lot of, when I look at a lot of rescue dogs in general, and people automatically equate, like I get a lot of people where the dog is biting them, and, the dog probably had a history of some sort of, not trauma, but, something like, okay, the dog was on the street, something happened, and then now the dog is home into their house, and the dog now has turned out to be a biter, right? It's biting them. The owners have been nothing but amazing to the dog. There's no history of the dog being abused, anything of that sort, but the dog is still biting. Now, when it comes to that, and it's important to understand that the dog may not have had any history of anything negative that has happened to the dog. But there is a very important factor that people are forgetting, is genetics.
Yes.
And in the dog world, when you talk about nature versus nurture, nature is usually the one that's playing a big role. And it's not in all about how you raise them. You cannot raise, like I've gotten so many, dogs that are not friendly. And I said, I cannot turn your German Shepherd into a lab. It's not possible.
Because I think that is where the breeding is very, very important. And like you initially mentioned that in the history of dogs, aggressive dogs were discarded or hunted down.
Yes.
Then a different type of, they observed and they breeded a different kind of temperament actually. So that maybe that is how it is working.
True. And at the same time, we also bred dogs that were meant for guarding and hunting, right? So there is also that streak which we actually wanted. But today we want to get a German Shepherd, or we want to get a Doberman, or we want to get a Pit Bull that has that streak, but we want usme Labrador, right? Or we want but that's not possible. And it's so important to understand ki bhai, ye maine dog liya hai, what is the genetic traits of this dog? And I also get it that today you cannot, like so many dogs that I get. For example, I just had a dog, a Rottweiler, beautiful dog. The owner was also amazing, but the dog is severely reactive, where he sees another human, he just wants to lunge at the other human. He sees another dog, he wants to lunge at the other dog. And the owner is really lost because she doesn't know what to do. She can't take this dog out on walks. And she also understands that he needs exercise. right? So the owner's also lost where she knows that he needs exercise, he needs that outdoor work, but she lives in a building society. तो बाहर लेके जाएगी तो लोग complain करेंगे because dog उनके ऊपर jump कर रहा है. So it's that cycle, right? And then the dog's not getting exercise, so he's getting like pent up energy and frustration.
This must be very stressful for these families.
It is. It's so stressful for the families, and it's not the family's fault, right?
Yeah.
Like this lady in particular, she knew she was getting a Rottweiler. She knew that she's going to put in the effort into exercising. She knew that she's going to put in the effort into work, and she's brilliant. Like, but abhi kutta aise nikla to kya karega, right? For no fault of hers. So a lot of times, then us stepping in, like me stepping in, my team stepping in, and kind of at least letting the dog know that, bhai, you cannot behave like this.
So what do you do in these situations?
So one is, of course, it boils down to how much structure does the dog have. Now, even something simple, right? You're looking at a 50 kg dog, right? उसको अगर मैं harness पे चलाऊंगी, तो वो drag करने ही वाला है. Because he's got that sheer power and that sheer strength. And no matter how much I try, even I try being a dog trainer, I'm not going to be able to control that dog. Right. So I'll have to change up tools and equipments and collars to make sure that I'm changing him to an equipment where the least amount of pressure gets my job done.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of times I will also have to correct the dog. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the bigger picture. Right? Wherein tomorrow, if I am still correcting this dog and letting the dog know that, dude, this behavior is not acceptable, at the end, dog ki bhalai hone wali hai.
Correct.
And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, especially when it comes to the love of dogs, is they're not willing to do the hard stuff eventually to help them. So then they get stuck in this loop where, like, I meet so many dogs on a regular basis where the dog is just stuck in the room all the time. Kyun? Because aake bahar kisi ko kaatta hai. You know, we can't have guests around him. We can't have... And I was like, if you just actually worked on being a little bit firm with your dog and taught him that this is not acceptable, your dog would actually have a better life.
Yeah.
But sometimes people also don't have the emotional capability to be firm. Or that's also, I feel, selfish to an extent, right? Because they don't want to feel bad about themselves. So they will let this behavior continue because they feel like, nee, I don't want to be the bad cop.
I don't want to have the guilt.
Exactly. But sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's necessary to also have that guilt because at the end of the day, the dog is going to suffer.
See, discipline is something which you need to have that change in your own personality to provide discipline. You cannot be softly providing discipline or just keeping the guilt that I'm doing discipline, something like that. Then the things will go all over the place.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of times like where I look at, we just had another case actually, this dog's come down from a whole different corner of the country to us. And again, these, this very sweet couples picked him up when he was like 30 days old, they got him home. And I think that's another, especially with rescue dogs, that's a big one, is when people get the dog home, there's this constant state of pity. There's this like, अरे बेचारा,
वो पूरा टाइम बेचारा
लगा, उसका पास्ट इतना ट्रॉमेटिक था, उसको ना नहीं बोलेंगे बिल्कुल भी, वो जो करना है करने दो. That's another side of it.
I think on the emotional side, what I've observed is that people are doing emotional feeding on their own emotional feeding here. Like rather than taking a proper care for the dog, they're feeding their own emotions and spoiling the dog.
I agree. And a lot of times whenever I get a rescue case na aise, where I've seen, right, there's a pattern where they're like, अच्छा, उसको सोफे पे ये करना है करने दो, उसको ये कर, why?
Because उनको अपना guilt बचा के रखना है.
हाँ, and नहीं, कुछ तो हुआ है, मतलब उसके बाद, I said, I keep telling people कि ठीक है, वो कभी 2 महीने का था, भूल जाओ ना. Now this is what he's come home ना, अभी अच्छा life है, खाना खा रहा है 2 बार, walk पे जा रहा है, there's nothing wrong with his life right now, but it's time for you to not raise a brat anymore, right? It's important for you to come around and teach the dog that this is the society we live in, and it's important, like say even same for human beings, right? Tomorrow you can't just walk up and start like smacking people on the street. Because you will probably get in trouble with the authority.
Yeah, बिल्कुल. And see, what you're mentioning is कि पहले उसको बेचारा बना के they will not treat properly or do the right things. And if the dog turns out to be bad, then यही past उसका problem बन जाएगा कि इसी past की वजह से आज ये problem है.
Exactly.
Because humans always want to keep them out of the problem, that we have ever been the problem. Yeah. So they don't want them to be the problem creators, although they were there all the time. But they're not the problem creators.
Of course. And it's like, हाथ ऊपर कर दिया ना ऐसा.
हमारा problem नहीं है, ये बेचारे पने की वजह से आज ये dog ऐसा बन गया है. It's a complete wrong cycle, I think, that people are following.
I absolutely. And see, at the end of the day, also, it's not like that, most people that come to me, at least all of my clients are great people. Yeah, it's not, nobody imagines that हम लोग कुत्ता घर पे लेके आएंगे and one day the dog is going to bite me. It's not something that anybody plans. Everybody wants their life to be like a lovely Hollywood movie where they got a dog home and this dog is going to be the best thing that happened to them in their lives. But that's not how life pans out. We'll get a dog that has come into, like, we just had a dog who gave somebody 17 stitches.
My God.
And it's not easy also to live with these dogs. I've had a client that's been stuck in their rooms for 3 days because the dog was guarding the living room. Because they couldn't get out in their own living room because the dog refused to let them get out because he was saying, the living room is mine today, you all get out, I'll bite.
My God.
And you talk about, we've spoken about the dogs, having a positive impact on our mental health. It's also, equally important to see, and I see it on a daily basis.
Yeah,
I see it on a daily basis. I've had people sit, like just a couple of days ago, this family came in, mother and son, and the son has gotten married sometime back, and the dog, she was a new introduction to the family, and I think the dog ended up snapping at her. And now she's like hell-bent that either you get rid of the dog or I'm going to my house. And literally they were both came in and they were like, Abhi kya kare? Please aap kuch bolo. I said, I'm happy to train, right? I'm happy to give you training advice, but will she be ready to train? Because the problem is in that relationship, right?
Yeah.
She has to work on that relationship. I'm happy to help you through the process of her working on the relationship. But is that an option? Because at the end of the day,
it is actually eventually, I think, the humans that are getting trained in the process.
Always.
It is mostly the humans training.
Always. Changing the
Looks
dog.
like that you're training the dog, but it is your thought process, actions, which will change the dog's action.
True. Training the dog is the easiest part.
Easiest part, actually.
For me, training the dog is the easiest part. It's then training the humans.
Yeah.
And of course, see, humans that have been through trauma with their dog, it's hard. I never discount it. If my dog has bitten me, I know you have a dog. Tomorrow, if your dog's bitten you badly, it's going to take you, like, your trust is broken. You're scared of your own dog for, of course, because it's caused you pain and harm.
Yeah.
And then it takes a while to get into, the works and put in that effort, put in that money, put in that time. It's very easy to say, "Hey, kaat raha hai, chalo shelter bhej do."
Correct.
Right? Yeah, raste pe chhod do. And there are a lot of people that do that also. And that's why I appreciate my clients all the time, because they are genuinely taking out the time and the money and the resources to come and say, you know what, we want to work on this dog. He is a brat. He has caused us harm, but we're not going to give up. We're going to work him through the process of it. And including that dog with 17 stitches.
Yeah.
I've had the entire family sit down, 2 people of the family.
I think a lot of times you're also working as a psychologist for the family, as a dog trainer. With the mask of a dog trainer, you are a psychologist.
Can I tell you a funny story? So I had this one dog, this family, the dog had bitten this girl multiple times. And the family had come to me for the consultation. And the parents have sat with me and said, please, can you tell our daughter to please give this dog away? We are worried that one day we're going to walk into the house and we're going to find our daughter dead on the floor and this dog's going to kill her. So as much as, it's hard to listen to these conversations, yeah? So I said, look, I'm a dog trainer. As a professional, I'm happy to help you with training. Whether you want to keep the dog or not keep the dog is your decision, right? If you say you want to keep the dog and you want to help with training, I'm here. But I can't make this decision for you. And nor am I going to tell somebody that you must keep this dog. Because at the end of the day, it's their decision whether they want to live with this dog for the rest of their life, put in that effort with training for yes or no.
Yeah.
And I remember every session, so we got the dog into training, started her work, and this dog was not easy. Like, this dog's tried to bite me multiple times, tried to bite my trainers multiple times. We went through the whole process of it, and then how it works is we train the dog, and then we have the owner starting. Once the dog has reached a good stage in training, then we start calling the owner. So then the owner comes to the facility, and then we train the owner how to work with the dog.
That is important.
And every session with that dog was, I still joke with the owner because now she's such a good friend. And I feel like when you go through that process together, all my clients end up just becoming like family friends, because you've been through that process together, and it's
you've changed their lives, literally.
And I remember every session I would be like, okay, because she'd had face bites and very scary. And she was scared of her dog. She loved her, but it was that weird equation where you love somebody but you're petrified of them. And so I would be like, okay, you're going to take a deep breath. She's probably going to try and snap at you because your energy is very like shaky, right? But remember, she's got a muzzle on. I am here with you. Like, come on, you can do this, right? Just close your eyes. We're going to get this done. And I still joke with her today. I said, listen, you have to pay me for therapy and dog training.
Actually, it should be like that. Because I am seeing that as a bifurcation of your profession. It is a lot of therapy that you have to
It's
do
so
because
much.
people's perception have to change for a dog to change.
Absolutely.
It is not a one-way street.
In fact, whenever I get somebody in for an interview, I tell them, why do you want to be a dog trainer? Because I love dogs. And I said, do you like people? I said, then this is not.
No, that is why I love dogs. That is what I've heard from a lot of people.
But I was like,
When you ask them that, do you love dogs? They will say that is why I love dogs because I don't love humans.
But that's the thing. I tell them then dog training is not for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That is
Because
true.
if you feel that if you want to work with a dog without working with the human being, then खुद के dog पे काम करो.
Correct.
You know, and then that way तो client वाइंड का issue है ही नहीं. But if you are getting into dog training, you have to be a people person.
Yeah.
Because if you can't convince the client that they need to do what you are saying, then automatically dog training चलने ही नहीं वाला है.
Fail हो जाओगे आप.
That is the most important part of the puzzle.
Correct.
Is convincing the client that they need to do what you're saying for the benefit of both of them.
Yes. I also feel that there is a very, very important need of a system or a process. I think through your facility only, like it should be a dog counseling. When I say dog counseling is something for a first time owner, there should be a process that people should go through before getting a dog. Like people should not randomly go and find a breeder and get a dog. It should be a process in terms of their place, a lot of things. And so I would also in return want you to tell the viewers what a first-time dog trainer, not a dog trainer, what a person who is getting a dog for the first time should look at, and what are the important things.
So, when, say today, right, as a professional, now if you go to look back at my own story, I never went through any process to get a dog, but she's changed my life completely, right? Today I'm able to help thousands of dogs thanks to that one happy accident that happened. So when somebody comes to me and says, you know, Mitali, I want to get a dog, I never say no, even if they are young or even if they are whatever. I said, you have to see this through till the end. कुछ भी हो जाए, dog को behavior problem आ जाए, क्या हो जाए, you have to make sure you see this through till the end, right? But say one is, of course, you decide whether you want to adopt, and if you want to adopt, you have to make sure, because see, a lot of times also, a lot of rescue organizations also, they have done their rescues, right? And they also want their dogs to get families. Now I understand that, but that also means that they might not tell you the full story. I just have a dog that came to me. This really sweet lady went to the shelter. Now she had nothing but pure intentions. Yeah, she said, I want to adopt. I don't want to shop. But it's also a system where it's a catch-22, because I feel that when dogs are when somebody buys a dog from a shitty breeder,
that is the problem.
The dog is then going to have some sort of health issue or behavior issue. फिर वैसे भी वो पैसा उधर, they have kind of skimmed on the money, right? So if they've skimmed on the money, the dog going to have some issue. Then when the dog has the issue, they're going to give it to the shelter.
That is the cycle that is going.
And then somebody goes to the shelter and says, I want the dog. They're going to get that dog. And then it's like, you know, that's why I also feel that regulations, and as much as people say, you know, I want to adopt, there's so many like nuances to it.
To adopt a dog, you should know dogs very, very well.
Exactly.
A first-time dog owner cannot go and adopt a dog. I adopted a dog which was my 5th dog. So I knew dogs
to a certain
well, and I did a small course also on to understand, and I was working in the mental health space, then went and did some dog therapy sessions also in schools and old age homes.
Oh, lovely.
So that is where I slowly started reading and understanding dogs. I nowhere recommend any of my friend to go and adopt a dog. There has never been a recommendation, although I have one, because I know they cannot handle it. You have to have the experience.
You know, again, because tomorrow you suggest, and you're not taking, like, I'm not taking any responsibility in terms of tomorrow I suggest, chalo, you know, you need a dog. No, because at the end of the day, they need to decide whether they want a dog. I'm here to help. That's the most important piece of the puzzle. But also a lot of times you're making sure that, you know, when you're looking at getting a dog, and see, I'm not somebody that's against, because when you're looking at breeds, again, there's a specific reasons why breeds were created by humans. Every breed has a different purpose. Every breed has a different size, right? I don't tell people that, see, tomorrow you have a small apartment. I wouldn't say go get a German Shepherd, right? No, you might have a preference कि भाई मुझे छोटा कुत्ता चाहिए because मेरा घर छोटा है.
But that checklist is important. See, I'm also in favor of the complete dog ecosystem.
Yeah.
But there has to be a checklist. It cannot be an impulsive decision.
Absolutely. It cannot be an impulsive decision. It has to be something that you've thought.
Structured, slightly structured.
Thought through.
Correct.
And then you decide. Like, for example, I know a breeder who is a friend, and I know that he doesn't breed dogs for money.
Passion.
He breeds dogs because he wants the best quality dogs that he breeds.
Correct.
And uske kutte na aap kidhar bhi bhejo, their temperament is beautiful. They have very beautiful skin, health conditions nahi hai. But his one dog sells at 1.5 2 lakhs.
Easily.
Because, and I tell clients that that's something, if you want, then go that route. Because then there's going to be no nonsense in the
You
middle.
cannot be looking for 50% discount or some shopping kind of a thing that I need to buy. कहाँ discount चल रहा है, clearance sale कहाँ पे है? It's not like that.
And I tell people, यार आप गाड़ी खरीदते हो, इतना देखते हो सब specifications, और वो गाड़ी आपके साथ 6-7 साल चल रही है. आप 13 साल के लिए डॉग खरीद रहे हो और आपको चाहिए डिस्काउंट.
क्योंकि वो आदत पड़ा हुआ है ज़ारा वारा का कि कहाँ clearance sale चल रहा है, कहाँ best मिल जाएगा, सस्ते में किधर मिलेगा.
I agree. No, it's an interesting, it's an interesting ecosystem. And I do think, of course, I think, the consumer only has to be, because you can't blame the breeding industry.
Yeah, they're doing it for you.
Is thriving because you're buying.
They're doing it because someone is buying. So it is they were not the first one. The buyer was the first one.
Absolutely. So one is, of course, remember what you're getting, why you're getting it. Are you ready for a commitment for that long? Are you ready for, everything that comes with it? Are you ready? Say tomorrow, I tell clients that, are you planning to get married? Are you planning to, what is the changes? Are you planning to shift a job somewhere? You have to take all of that into consideration and only then say, okay, you know what? I'm ready. Let's do this.
Great. It was amazing talking to you, Mitali. It was a superb conversation. Thank you so much for all your knowledge and a lot of awareness that you have provided to our viewers also. And I wish the viewers watch this before getting or looking into a dog.
Oh, I hope so too. I hope this helps. And it was great chatting with you.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for watching till the end. I hope you really liked the video. Please do comment below and tell us your feedback, and also tell us the guests that you would like to have on the show. We will definitely try and invite them and have on the show to discuss different aspects of well-being. Also, please do not forget to like, subscribe and share, because that helps us to reach out to more and more people to have the impact that we are working for. Thank you very much.